And Cheese Whiz, I mean, it is so disgusting, it's fabulous, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So the Cheese Whiz on the cheese ball, I just did that on one take, and everyone thought it was so funny that then, of course, I had to keep doing it. And finally, I think we must have done about, you know, I don't know, 20 different versions of the Cheese Whiz on the cheese ball. Before you jumped on, I was just saying to Buzz before, I was like, oh, I'm really enjoying talking about Mare. People really seem to like it. It's like, oh my God, phew.
Oh, I don't. So this will be totally different. I'm kidding. Oh my God, how awkward would that be, right? Oh, well, I hated it, but we're going to do this. I'm so excited to speak with you. I'm a huge fan. The show is amazing, and particularly your performance was something I'm going to love to talk about.
Well, so, I love talking. I really love talking about her. It's like, it was just such a great role. It was very hard playing her, I'll be honest, but it was also incredibly liberating at times as well, because she is so unvain. You know, this is a woman who just doesn't care what she looks like, doesn't care what foods she puts into her body, however fake they might be, doesn't care how many bottles of beer she drinks, you know. She even, dare I say it, drinks too much and then drives a car and seems to think that she has her own set of rules. She actually reminded me quite a lot of my father, I have to be honest. But she's is a very, very full-on, multi-layered, complicated woman who is both, you know, strong and weak and lovable and kind of loathsome at the same time. And I really, really loved playing her.
How's your morning going so far?
Great. I just wasted the last half hour picking out an aquarium for the turtle you and Drew brought home yesterday.
He seems excited about it. I think it'll be good for him, you know? Give him something to look after.
That's what you said about the lizard. 2 weeks later, I was flushing it down the toilet.
Tell me exactly when you came onto the project and what it was about Mare that drew you in. Like, at what point in development were you brought on, and how much did you know about her at that point?
I was brought on before it had been sold to HBO. So I ended up becoming kind of part of the selling package, actually. Awesome. So Brad Inglesby, which was really cool, and I loved that. Like, so Brad Inglesby came to me with episodes 1 and 2. And I read them both, and of course, was hooked. You know, I mean, these cliffhangers, this town, you know, but it wasn't like reading a small town murder story.
No,
it's not like that, because the community and that sense of family and ritual and rhythm. You know, those are the things that create the backbone and the heartbeat of the show, and Mare is at the epicenter of that world and absorbs everyone else's problems whilst not dealing with her own ones. And I don't know, there was something about her that almost broke my heart, because she's so overloaded with life and barely functioning, but appearing to function incredibly well. And to be able to be that strong and cover up your grief and personal anguish to the extent that she is able to, I found really heartbreaking. And I knew that it was going to be a very immersive, challenging experience playing her, and it did sort of really take over, and she almost became like an alter ego for me. Like, I miss playing her. That's how much I loved her.
I mean, she seems really freeing. Like, I'm sitting in the first episode and you're like, okay, you open yourself to it. You're like, am I going to like this? Am I going to relate to this character? And there is a scene where she chases Freddie. She hops over the fence. She sprains her ankle. Very relatable. And then once she's inside, she has labored breathing for more than a minute. And I was just like, yes, this character understands like my deepest struggles. She's just a very human, very kind of out of shape, doesn't take care of herself, but is so committed to everything and everyone around her.
Freddie, come on. You have 2 minutes, all right?
So those were the things about Mare that I loved, and those were the things I was excited to play, and that was why I wanted to be her. She's She's like everyone I know. She really is, you know. She's a mother who is struggling to hold it together and failing most of the time in her personal life and yet succeeding in her professional life sometimes, and then at the end, and we're not going to give anything away, you'll see, she's so real, you know.
Yeah.
And it fell to me to make her even more so, and I really indulged in that, I have to say.
I did hear that maybe that the cheese whiz in the first episode was yours or your contribution.
100%. I just did that. Well, props. You know, I would always get quite involved with the props. I'm a little bit obsessed about props. So the props department, I was at Lainey and Jonathan, and I'd be like, Lainey, the table doesn't look messy enough. We need more stuff, like, you know, just crappy napkins or just, you know, plates discarded. You know, the kitchen's too clean. So we would regularly, the two of us, like me and Lainey from props, make a mess of everything. And you know, just that thing of there always being fake foods around. I appreciate that. I appreciate fake foods. I'm not going to lie. And Cheese Whiz, I mean, it is so disgusting. It's fabulous, you know?
Oh,
and
yeah.
So the Cheese Whiz on the cheese ball, I just did that on one take, and everyone thought it was so funny that then, of course, I had to keep doing it. And finally, I think we must have done about, you know, I don't know, 20 different versions of the Cheese Whiz on the cheese ball. And so my wrap gift was an entire drum of cheese balls and a full package of Cheese Whiz from the props department. I was very, very proud.
Of all the houses he could move into, he has to buy the one right behind mine.
Well, I heard he got a really good deal on it.
Mm-hmm. Since when is he a fucking cook?
Just needed a good woman to bring out the best in him.
I think it was removing the cap with your mouth that really sold it for me. I was like, yes, this is not her first rodeo with Cheese Whiz. Like, I can see that this character is really invested.
Yeah, she's got a system. She has a system down. It's a ritualistic system. It's something she does to get by.
So this is your first real foray into producing. Like, what was that experience like here? And why was now the time you wanted to sort of explore that?
I've been aware, like I think in the last 10 to 15 years, just how for me, it's never just about the acting. You know, I always do so much more. Right. End up getting really involved with the script and lucky enough to be included in that creative process. And I really enjoy it. I get a huge amount out of it. And I just was noticing as the years have gone by that I've learned more and more and more about the job of producing, which is a totally different job to acting. And I've always said, look, I'm not going to add my name to something as a producer in name only without actually knowing what I'm doing. And so I did get to the point where I felt capable enough to take on that role. And I just loved it. I mean, it did mean that I just had more access to more departments. I could support people more and better. And it worked, you know, it was a really good thing, I think, for everyone on set. It kind of unified people much more. And it meant that I had much more responsibility, and ultimately I felt like I had a lot more people than just the cast to look after and kind of check in with. But I loved it, you know. This was a wonderful group of people, and it meant a lot to, you know, to be able to step into that role, and it's still going on. I mean, you know, they're still editing each episode. Even though they've been sent to you, they are not completed. And and so there's, you know, I messaged Brad Inglesby twice already today about two things that happened in episode 7, and I'm like, hang on, we have to do this and do this, and he's like, oh my god, good save. I'm like, yes. So it constantly goes on, you know.
How was the production process then? Because I know you were underway with filming and then got interrupted because of the, you know, pandemic. During that process, when you're shut down, were things changing behind the scenes? Did you have major story changes or change direction at all? And how was that delayed process?
When we shut down because of the pandemic, we actually only had about 7 weeks to go. I only had 4 weeks to go.
Oh.
So I was like, I'm nearly there. Oh, I'm not nearly there. And then the pandemic, of course, hit. And so meanwhile, you know, I had to return to England with all of my family, and was still in my mind playing Mare, you know, knitting the stitches of the sweater sweater that was Mare Sheehan. And that was something that, it kind of got me through COVID in many ways, because I always had this distraction, this thing. There were many a Zoom call with HBO and the creative team trying to figure out how on earth we were going to go back to work, like so many film productions that shut down. And a lot of things did change. Like, there were parts of the story we did have to adjust. Huge crowd scenes that had previously existed, they had to go. And just shooting in totally different ways. Like, there's something that happens in episode 7, which I won't tell you, that did involve a lot of people originally. And that was filmed in about 3 different segments where there was only 10 people in each given moment, and things done to make it look like there were more of us than there actually were in that space. But things like that, I had some intimate scenes to do with Guy Pearce. So what do you do with 2 actors when it's COVID time and they have scenes like that together? You put them in a house and you make them live together, and that's what we did. So Guy Pearce and myself, and Angari Rice, who plays Siobhan, my daughter, and Jean Smart, we actually all lived together in a house, and it was really fun and actually added to the energy and the togetherness and all of those good things, and very unique experience, which I would repeat. Actually, I really loved having access to the world of Mare, like 24/7. It was pure indulgence for me. I loved it.
You're living in my house now, remember?
The hell's that supposed to mean?
It means I can come home at 3:30 a.m., drunk, high, or sideways, if I want to, and not be made to feel I'm a fool.
Oh, well, good for you, Mare.
Yeah, it is good for me.
You watch the series and you think, God, they really built these relationships. Siobhan really feels like her daughter. Jean Smart, of course, really feels like her mom. And this explains a lot, like having to live together in this house. Did you find that sort of strengthened those bonds, and you found new notes to play?
To be perfectly honest, like the living together portion was the post-pandemic portion. Oh. So actually, it was only about 7 weeks out of a 120-day shoot.
True.
But it added, it was a great way to end. It really was. Like, it felt like a sort of final hurrah kind of thing. But we were really close. We were developing real relationships whilst playing those characters, and that really made a big difference. And we all got along. We did not have one single tricky or difficult actor or personality that was hard to contend with, and everyone was kind of swept into the world of Mare, and we all drank the Kool-Aid and were part of this very real world that we had created, and had to look out for each other, because obviously emotionally there are some really difficult themes, and it does touch on mental health, and those things were hard for us, and particularly hard for me. And so I needed to be able to lean on, the other actors, and was really able to do that, and felt, enormously grateful that I had them all there.
Right. As the series continues, we get more of a window into Mare's own trauma, about the history of mental illness in her family. How do you think she sees her role as potentially being that link between her father's depression and her son's illness, and then whatever might happen with her grandson? To say nothing of her own struggles, like, where is her head at, and how did you find that within yourself?
I think Mare has spent most of her life terrified that she's actually chronically depressed herself. And time, I think, really pretending that she isn't. And I think her job has always been her escape, her absolute lifeline. And so that's why, and we would, no spoilers, but what happened in 3 is so catastrophic for her, because as soon as that is removed, the rug is ripped out from underneath her, and she's forced to confront her demons. And part of that is her own mental health and how she has coped, or hasn't coped, and actually largely has not coped at all. And so I think that she feels responsible. I think she blames herself. I think she sees herself as the linchpin between all of these issues in her own family. And I think, the guilt that she is completely racked with consumes her, absolutely consumes her. And that was the kind of the gaping sort of chasm at the heart of who Mare was and is for the most part of the show, is this woman who's struggling with absolutely overwhelming grief. and desperately wanting to come out the other side of it, but really not having any clue of where she should begin, but also accepting it, because she lives in a community of people who have dealt with the same, if not worse. So just getting on and coping and keep going, you know, that's her attitude. She's kind of just like an amazing but heartbreaking person, really.
I had to check out after a while. It just... became totally overwhelming, you know? Not being able to figure him out.
There is a trend in her life where Mare's family does not want to tell her the truth about things, about difficulties with her grandson, with custody issues, with her ex-husband getting engaged. Do you think that they understand the depth of grief and pain that she is in and are trying to spare her? Or do you think they are just trying to avoid her metaphorically killing the messenger on this news that she might find unpleasant?
I think they all both love and loathe Mare at any given moment, and that can, you know, that it's a knife edge with Mare. You know, you just never know. You never know what you're going to get on any different day, literally depending on what side of the bed she slept that night. She's a very volatile, tricky person, but at the same time, I think they all know how much she loves them. And they know how to sort of love her and handle her in equal measure. And that's, you know, that's a dance, that's a fine art. And they all just about do it okay. But I think they are all unified in their fear that if they push Mare too much to talk about her grief, they can see she'll just fall apart. She would just fall apart. And they don't want that to happen to her. You know, I think they're scared of putting her through that because she's already been through so much.
I haven't combed through your entire filmography to make sure this is correct. I believe it's your first time playing a grandmother.
Yes.
How did that go? How did that feel, like being someone's gram?
I mean, it was completely lovely. You know, it felt very, I don't know, it felt very relaxed. It's part of Mare. You know, that little boy, that grandson, Drew, he becomes the apple of all of their eyes. And Izzy King, who plays Drew, I was with all those children that they auditioned for that role. And he was the last little boy that came in. And it was crystal clear that he was our kid. He was just so sweet and kind of wide-eyed and fascinated and engaging. And he really listened. He was absolutely fantastic. And he just became part of our world, you know, and he understood that, you know, he couldn't call me Kate, he would call me Gran, and, you know, he just got it. He was absolutely brilliant.
Hey, you get it all out, buddy?
Yeah.
Okay, come on, let's go.
Gran, can you rub my head?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, love playing a grandma. All good with me on that front.
When he came in from his interview, did he come in backwards, like scooting in like he does in his
No, but that is a thing that is his little thing. That's something that he does. It's called the bullet. So we do it. So we put it in the show. And we're like, hey, can you do the bullet? He'd like, not again. And then he'd do it. It was brilliant.
It's hard to have a signature move. Kate, thank you so much. You and the show are brilliant, and I just count myself so fortunate to be able to discuss it with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.